What if I told you that there was a runner who physically couldn't get tired? An athlete who not only won 2 Olympic gold medals and broke the marathon world record twice, but also became the first human ever to run that same distance in under 2 hours. Yes, Eliud Kipchoge was so physically ahead of his opponents that while they ran visibly struggling, cramping and wincing in pain, he breezed past them with his signature smile glued to his face.
Yet again, he has done it!
That is how good he truly was. But how did he develop this unbelievable endurance and mental strength that allowed him to push human limits so far that even scientists were left scratching their heads? Well, to find out, we have to go back to Kapsisua, a small village in Kenya's Nandi County, where Eliud Kipchoge was born into the Kalenjin community, a region famous for producing world-class distance runners. Kipchoge was raised by his mother after his father passed away while he was still very young. Daily life revolved around farming, school, and long distances between everything, which meant children spent much of their day on foot. Kipchoge later recalled that in primary school he ran to and from class 4 times a day, covering roughly 5 to 6 kilometers each trip, simply because, as he put it, time was limited. In his community, running wasn't treated as a distinct sport, it was simply the way to get around efficiently. These early miles laid an unconscious foundation for his extraordinary endurance. But physical exercise wasn't the only thing that molded young Kipchoge. Growing up in the Kalenjin culture meant knowing that certain initiation practices would eventually test a boy's ability to stay completely composed through discomfort. These could involve crawling through stinging nettles, undergoing circumcision, or sitting still while thick mud dried on the face, where even the slightest flinch could cause a child to be labeled a coward. For many boys in the region, these moments weren't dramatic stories. They were simply part of becoming an adult. And years later, when Kipchoge spoke about pain, you could still hear the echoes of that upbringing.
If you feel that pain, please give that pain. If you feel the pain, then feel it. The more you move with the pain, that's where success is.
By the time Kipchoge reached secondary school, he had his first real taste of organized running. Students were required to race several afternoons a week, and although he was slightly better than most of his classmates, he never treated it as something serious. Much of his attention during his final 2 years of school went toward preparing for exams, not athletics, but running remained a constant part of his routine, simply because it always had been. After graduating secondary school in 1999, Eliud took up a job to support his family. He became a milk collector. The job required cycling nearly 20 kilometers to Kapsabet and back while carrying up to 75 liters at a time. He earned just 1 Kenyan shilling per liter, the equivalent of a single US dollar on his heaviest days. And after 5 months of this work, he had finally saved enough to buy his first pair of proper training shoes. In late 2000, with basic gear and a spark of determination, 15-year-old Kipchoge began to train on his own. Over the next few months, he entered a handful of local races, small events that gave him his first real taste of competition. He showed flashes of talent, placing well in some meets, but also struggled as the level rose. At times, he missed out on qualifying for bigger championships, often falling just short when it mattered most. These early setbacks were a reality check for the teenager. Kipchoge would later admit that his training simply wasn't good enough back then. And those results forced him to confront the truth. If he wanted to succeed, he needed to train properly. Everything changed on the 21st of September 2001. Kipchoge entered a 10-kilometer race in Kapsabet organized by former Boston Marathon champion Elijah Lagat, and he won by a huge margin. Among the spectators that day was someone who had inspired Eliud from afar, a man who lived just a few kilometers from his home, a face he'd grown up seeing running those same village roads. That person was Patrick Sang, 1992 Olympic steeplechase silver medalist and a national legend in Kenyan athletics. Impressed by the talent he'd just seen, Patrick handed Eliud a simple stopwatch as a prize and a symbol of potential. This moment was the beginning of a powerful mentor-student relationship in Kipchoge's life. Tseng's presence at the race wasn't random though. By then, he had returned home after his own international career, and he spent most days coaching young athletes around Kapsabet. So, when Kipchoge approached him after the race, Tseng saw just another teenager looking for guidance.
Interestingly, I didn't know it was Eliud. There was this kid who used to come and say, can you write for me a program? And I'll just, make notes for him, say for 2 weeks, go and follow this. And he would come back after 2 weeks to say, now I finished, what can I do from here? And kept the rhythm going. After close to 2 months, I was asking him, who are you? And he says, I'm Eliud Kipchoge, we come from the same area.
What Tseng didn't realize at first was that Kipchoge's mother had actually been his kindergarten teacher years earlier, a tiny detail that only made their connection more meaningful. Tseng's training plans worked fast. By 2003, Kipchoge was surrounded by elite athletes and was rocketed to the top of Kenyan athletics in a very short time. He surprised everyone by becoming the junior world cross-country champion, and even set a world junior 5,000-meter record that would stand for nearly a decade. Everything he had done so far was pushing him toward a new chapter, a point where he would leave behind the junior races he'd mastered and enter the highest level of the sport. This was the race that would reveal him to the entire world. On the track that summer, the World Championships took place in Paris. And in the men's 5,000-meter final, Kipchoge stood on the start line. An 18-year-old almost nobody was paying attention to. Fans were expecting a huge showdown between two superstars. Kenenisa Bekele, the new 10,000-meter world champion, and Hisham El Garouj, the world record holder at 1,500 meters and the mile. From the start, Bekele pushed the pace hard. The first kilometers were just outside world record tempo. Then the pace slowed when Kipchoge took the lead for a short stretch, setting up a fast and dramatic finish. With 900 meters left, El Garouj surged to the front and began to wind things up, even though it was unfamiliar territory for a middle-distance runner. At the bell, the Moroccan kept pushing, and the group began to stretch. With 200 meters to go, he held a 2-meter lead. Kipchoge was right behind him. Bekele was half a stride further back. Around the final bend, Kipchoge made his move. He stepped into lane 2, pulled up beside the Moroccan star, and began to sprint. Bekele tried to go wide into lane 3, but he couldn't match their speed. Kipchoge's head rocked side to side with effort, and in the final meters, with a well-timed dip at the line, Kipchoge won by 0.04 seconds, setting a new championship record. The crowd in Stade de France was stunned. A teenager had just won the world championship and beat the two heavily favored champions. Nobody expected it, but Eliud's grin at the finish told the world a new star had arrived. It was his first major win on the global stage.
I conquered the world by winning 5,000 meters in France, that's in Paris. That was the beginning of my life in sport.
Despite shocking the world in Paris, Eliud's journey was far from complete. That win didn't suddenly make him untouchable. Instead, it dropped him into one of the most competitive eras the 5,000 meter had ever seen. Because the men he had just beaten weren't fading away, they were in their primes. So, the following year, when the 2004 Olympic Games in Athens arrived, Kipchoge was put to the test yet again. The race built slowly, cautiously, and when the final push came, all three men were still fighting down the home straight. Kipchoge emptied the tank, but with less than 50 meters to go, the final burst belonged to El Garouj and Bekele. He crossed the line in third place. An Olympic bronze at 19, the kind of achievement most athletes could only dream of. For Kipchoge, though, it became something different. Not disappointment, but possibility. A reminder that he already belonged among the very best, and that his ceiling was still somewhere far beyond. Throughout Kipchoge's 20s, he was competing relentlessly, sharpening himself against the best in the world. Some seasons brought wins, others brought near misses. In 2005, he finished just outside the medals at the World Championships in Helsinki, a disappointing result for Kipchoge, who entered the race as the defending world champion and crossed the line in 4th place. In 2006, without a major global event, he stayed actively running across Europe. But the big stages were where he truly measured himself, and in 2007, he rose back to them, taking silver at the World Championships in Osaka. Then came Beijing 2008, another showdown with the great Kenenisa Bekele. The Ethiopian set a relentless pace, eventually breaking the Olympic record. Kipchoge fought all the way and crossed the line in 2nd place, securing the silver medal, an upgrade from the Olympic bronze he'd earned 4 years earlier. Across these years, one thing never changed. He kept showing up, in the finals, in the battles, and among the very best distance runners on earth. But the very top step, the one title he had chased since Paris, kept staying just out of reach. After Beijing, the picture slowly began to change. In 2009 at the World Championships in Berlin, he finished 5th. Not disastrous, but not the Kipchoge standard. 2 years later in Daegu, he placed 7th in the final, another race where he was present but never a true contender. The consistency that had defined his early career was beginning to slip, but the ultimate blow to his track ambitions came in 2012.
2012, that was actually my low moment. I missed a chance to Olympic Games in London.
At the Kenyan Olympic trials, with an epic battlefield given Kenya's depth, he finished a disappointing 7th in the 5,000 meters, missing the team altogether. After a decade of racing on the oval, Eliud faced the possibility that his track career had hit a dead end. With a decade of world-class mileage in his legs and Kenya's marathon tradition all around him, he began thinking about a different plan, a longer distance, and a version of himself he hadn't explored yet. So, behind the scenes, he and his coach started breaking down what this next step would look like. Kipchoge already had the engine. What he needed was a new mindset to prepare for a race that demanded something completely different to the track.
In running, one benefit that Eliud brought after a long career on the track is that he had a long storage of mileage. Having trained for that long, it's 10-year stretch, so you cannot discount that. We transition the mind more, that the mind to understand you're going to a new territory that had not experienced before.
Kipchoge committed himself fully to the roads, and in April 2013, he stepped onto a marathon start line for the first time in Hamburg. Nobody quite knew what to expect, but he made it clear he belonged here. He won convincingly and even set a new course record for a first attempt. Breaking 2 hours and 6 minutes was astonishing. Still, it was on one of marathon's biggest stages that Kipchoge truly made his mark that year, the Berlin Marathon. There he faced Kenya's marathon world record holder, Wilson Kipsang. Kipchoge finished second while Kipsang broke the world record, a sign that Eliud could already hang with the best in the 26.2-mile game. People started paying attention. Clearly, something special was being built. Across 2014 and 2015, that something became impossible to ignore. Kipchoge began stacking wins at a rate the marathon world hadn't seen in years. 4 straight victories across Rotterdam, Chicago, London, and Berlin. The early stretch of a streak that hinted at real dominance. And it wasn't just the results, but the way he handled everything thrown at him. In Berlin 2015, his insoles slipped out of his shoes barely a mile into the race, flapping at his ankles for more than 20 kilometers. Most runners would have stopped, but Kipchoge pushed through it and crossed the line in first place with blisters, blood, and a personal best. It wasn't the time that shocked people, it was the composure. The way he stayed completely unfazed by something that should have ruined his race.
The lining actually blocked out, and I had no otherwise but to continue. When did that happen? When? Immediately after 800 meters. Yes, 800 meters. Did you recognize it? Or was it painful then? Or my foot was really painful. The sole on my left was disturbing my other leg, but I had to focus and finish the race.
By the end of 2015, he had won 5 marathons out of 6, and the only man who'd beaten him was the one who set a world record. But even with this momentum, there was still one thing missing. Ever since that night in Paris 2003, when he stunned 2 legends to win the 5,000-meter world title, there was still one summit he had never reached, the very top of the Olympic podium. He had medals, plenty of them, but not that one, the one that defines eras, the one every athlete pictures as a child.
Well, my plans for the future is to run Olympic Games next year. I have silver for Olympics, bronze for Olympics, but I don't have a gold medal for Olympic Games.
Kipchoge didn't say that to entertain the crowd. It was a glimpse into where his entire journey was heading. By the time August 21, 2016 arrived in Rio de Janeiro, the world was about to see what that belief truly meant. Running with the same calm authority he'd shown throughout his marathon career, Kipchoge dominated the race, winning by 1 minute and 10 seconds, the largest Olympic marathon margin since Frank Shorter in 1972. But perhaps the most telling statistic from Rio, the one that captured how he actually dismantled the race, was the split. Kipchoge covered the second half more than 3 minutes faster, a negative split that no one else in the field could even begin to match. Once he made his move, the medal was never in doubt. But what stayed with Kipchoge wasn't the time or the victory. It was what came after.
Really, my mind was many things were running, but all in all, the first was the national anthem for my own country. And about 4 billion people are watching, so I was really happy.
Rio didn't slow him down. If anything, it solidified what was coming. Once the Olympic medal was finally his, he returned to training with the same routine, discipline, and consistency that had carried him through the previous 3 years, and the wins kept coming. But 2017 introduced something new, a moment that didn't count as a world record or an official marathon, but changed what people believed was possible. In May of that year, on a Formula One circuit in Monza, Italy, Kipchoge attempted the first ever Breaking 2 project, an experimental run designed by Nike to see whether a human could cover marathon in under 2 hours. Everything was controlled, the pacing, the course, the conditions. It wasn't eligible for the record books, but the result was impossible to ignore. Kipchoge ran the fastest marathon distance ever covered at that time, and came within 25 seconds of breaking a barrier that had stood untouched for the entire history of the sport. And for the first time, 2 hours didn't feel mythical. It felt like something within reach.
The world actually is full of challenges, and we need to challenge ourselves. I took a challenge to run that fast. It consumes a lot of energy, especially mentally, but I took myself and accepted to be challenged, and I challenged the time.
For the rest of 2017 and early 2018, Kipchoge didn't slow down. He continued the same pattern, hard races, tough conditions, and still finding ways to win. But all of it was moving toward one moment, one performance, and one race that would signal what was coming next. Berlin had always been the place where marathon records fell, but in 2018, the build-up felt different. Kipchoge arrived having won every major race since April 2014, and the conversation that began in Monza hadn't gone away. If a human being was ever going to run under 2 hours, the first sign would show in Berlin. September 16, 2018, the Berlin Marathon.
In sport, actually, you accept the outcome. But I will be more happy when I run my personal best and win the race on Sunday.
From the start, Kipchoge committed to a pace that was faster than any marathon had ever been run. After 15 kilometers, 2 pacemakers were already gone. By 25, the last one peeled off, leaving him alone with 17 kilometers still to go, the exact point most athletes tighten, lose rhythm, or fall away from world record pace. Kipchoge did the opposite. He found another gear. By the time he reached 40 kilometers, the world record wasn't a possibility. It was a certainty. Kipchoge covered the second half of the race in more than a minute faster than the first. Another incredible negative split. He maintained that rising rhythm all the way to the line and stopped the clock at 2:01:39, taking an astonishing 78 seconds off the previous world record, the largest single improvement in more than 50 years.
When you woke up this morning and you stood on that start line in Berlin, do you believe this would be the greatest day in your running life?
I had a great belief that I will run a world record, but I didn't know I will run 2:01. But all in all, that what I was believing translated to 2:01, and I'm happy for it.
To understand how absurd his pace really was, you only need to look at what happened a few weeks later in Chicago. At the 2018 Chicago Marathon Expo, runners were invited to step onto a special treadmill, nicknamed the Tumbleador. Its setting went up to Kipchoge's exact world record speed, 13 miles per hour, the equivalent of running 200 meters every 34 seconds, for over 2 hours. Most people didn't last 10 seconds, and even some flew straight off into cushioned mats. Even elite club runners were gasping after half a minute. Berlin didn't just show how fast Kipchoge could run in open conditions, it changed the context of everything that had come before. Monza had been an experiment, a first attempt at the impossible. But Berlin proved something new. Kipchoge himself had evolved. He was stronger, smoother, and faster than the athlete who came within 25 seconds of history in 2017. Which left the world with one question. What would happen when the world record version of Kipchoge got a second chance at perfection? The world didn't have to wait long to find out. On October 12, 2019 in Vienna, Austria, at the city's Prater Park, Eliud Kipchoge stepped forward to answer it. The Ineos 1 minute 59 second challenge wasn't an official race, it was open to the public field. Rotating pacemakers who would block the wind. A pace car would guide the rhythm, and fluids would be handed directly to him from cyclists. Nothing about the setup fit the rulebook, but none of that changed what the attempt was, a real test of human possibility. And Kipchoge arrived as the one man on earth who had earned the right to try. Halfway through, the pace was fast, faster than predicted.
That was a big motivation for me, that if I am crossing actually under 60 with a half, then I will not miss a world record.
He didn't miss. Kipchoge reached the final kilometer and broke into a smile that spread across the entire crowd. He crossed the line in 1:59:40 and became the first human being in history to run a marathon in under 2 hours, a barrier many scientists believed wouldn't fall until 2075. Although no one has broken 2 hours since, one thing from that day spread far beyond Vienna. Kipchoge's message, "No human is limited," became more than a phrase. It became a belief shared worldwide, echoed by millions who watched him make history. But the marathon isn't a story of perfection. And a year later, Kipchoge faced a rare reminder that even the greatest can have an off day. The 2020 London Marathon was held under strict pandemic conditions. Kipchoge lined up unbeaten for 7 straight years, the most dominant run in marathon history. Early on, nothing looked unusual. The pace was steady, even conservative by elite standards. Kipchoge looked calm, controlled, exactly as he always had. Yet this was not a normal marathon. Usually at some point in the second half of the race, the Kenyan blasts away from the field. But with just 4 miles remaining, there were still 9 men in contention. It had become a game of chicken, with no one wanting to make the first move. But when the Ethiopian Kitata stepped on the gas, Kipchoge suddenly began to look uncomfortable, twitching and grimacing as he tried to keep up. And while he never gave up, he was dropped after 24 miles and could only trudge home in 8th with the second slowest time of his career.
I'm really disappointed. I thought I could run better, but I had a problem with my right here actually blocked all the way. It was really blocked, and I don't know what happened. And then my side of the legs actually was really cramped. So, but that's how sport is.
For the first time in years, the world began to ask a question that had been unthinkable just 12 months earlier. Was the greatest marathoner ever finally slowing down? But doubt never sat with Kipchoge for long. He went back to training, rebuilt quietly, and waited for the moment that mattered most: the defense of his Olympic title. 10 months later, at 36 years old, he stood on the start line of Tokyo Olympic Marathon, ready to remind the world who he was. The heat of Sapporo was brutal, the field was deep, and the questions from London still followed him. But Kipchoge ran with the calm of someone who had already lived every version of pressure the sport could offer. And slowly, the doubts that had built over the past year began to disappear. He broke the field open in the final miles and never looked back, crossing the line more than a minute clear of the chase pack. Only 2 men in history had ever defended an Olympic marathon title. Now Kipchoge joined them. Tokyo should have been the fitting closure to a legendary career. Instead, it became the launching point for a late career run nobody expected. In 2022, he returned to Berlin and pushed the boundaries again. Just when it seemed Kipchoge had achieved everything he possibly could over the classic distance, the legendary sliced 30 seconds from his own world record to run 2:01:09. At an age when most marathoners are easing out of the sport, Kipchoge was extending the limits of what a human being could do over 26.2 miles.
So still more in my legs are still more, and I hope future still great.
After that world record, Kipchoge kept going. In 2023, he claimed the Berlin Marathon for a record 5th time, becoming the first man in history to do so. Even as the younger generation rose around him, Kipchoge continued to show that mastery doesn't age the same way the body does. But this era also brought a new name into the conversation. Kelvin Kiptum. That same year in Chicago, the 23-year-old phenom ran 2:00:35. Smashing Kipchoge's world record by 34 seconds and becoming the first human ever to complete an official marathon in under 2:01. It was a moment that signaled the future of the sport, and yet Kipchoge's reaction revealed everything about who he is.
I was happy, man, to see somebody younger than me breaking the world record, because I broke the world record twice. And inside my heart, I believe that records are there to be broken. And that's the beauty of sport.
Then came Paris, Kipchoge's 5th Olympic marathon. At 39, he stood on the start line as the oldest athlete in the field, chasing an unprecedented 3rd straight goal. But for the first time in his career, he didn't reach the finish, citing discomfort around the 30-kilometer mark.
At 20 kilometers, actually, I feel my legs is no longer moving. I have some pain, and then I try to push on and push, but I realize I can't go anywhere. So a lot was going on in my mind.
For many, that moment was the ending. The calls for retirement grew louder. But for Kipchoge, the marathon had never only been about medals. He later confirmed he would not attempt another Olympic Games. His purpose had evolved, and today, that purpose has led him into a completely new chapter. Kipchoge has launched the Eliud Kipchoge World Tour, a mission to run 7 marathons across 7 continents in 2 years, to unite the world through running. Each stop raises money for the Eliud Kipchoge Foundation, supporting education, environmental projects, school libraries, and local communities around the globe. Eliud's biggest dream has always been to make this world a running world, and now the time has come to make this dream a reality. But on the other side of the sporting world, there was one sprinter who didn't bother dreaming at all. because while others slept, he lived in nightclubs and still destroyed everyone.